Hey, what's up guys, John here. 100 new tax hikes could be soon coming to America. The Biden administration is working on this plan, which I believe is going to go into effect.
President Biden needs to find a way to pay for that $7.3 trillion budget he released earlier today.
That includes money for housing, tax breaks for families, and border security. It also includes proposals to lower costs for families and investments in U.S. manufacturing.
And it turns out he's going to be looking to corporations and the wealthy to help cover the bill.
I believe it because we look at the direction of the world. The conversation being had everywhere is combating inequity, inequality, making the world a more fair and just place. And the only way in which they believe they're going to be able to do this is increasing taxes across the board. But when you see a scenario like what we're in right now with record high inflation, it's a very challenging climate to run and operate a business. What we're likely going to see, the aftermath of this, is going to be more layoffs. We're going to see a lot more strain on the U.S. consumer and a lot of change coming to America. I mean, look at this. This just came out CNBC News.
Amounts to $5 trillion tax hikes on companies and high earners. In total, there would be over 100 tax increases and changes in this budget.
So 100 tax increases and changes in this budget. So when you look at this and you say, okay, well, maybe they're going to try to do something on a federal level. Maybe that's going to be the end of it. Now, what I think is going to happen is I believe states are going to continue doing stuff like this. So lawmakers in California, Connecticut, Hawaii, Illinois, Maryland, New York, Oregon, and Washington have also introduced wealth taxes this year. This represents 6% of the wealth in the United States. Then you had progressive Democrat Elizabeth Warren, who leads a renewed charge for wealth tax on the ultra-rich, which just came out yesterday evening, 9:33 p.m. So you see this big push. The Biden administration, Elizabeth Warren, you see states getting together. Now, what I think is going to be happening next is I think we're going to see round two of business exodus. Now, in 2020, we saw many great companies and aspiring entrepreneurs and great entrepreneurs and investors relocating from places like San Francisco, Los Angeles, Boston, Philly, New York City. And where'd they go? They went to Florida. They went to Texas. And why? It's a favorable landscape for business, no income tax, no state income tax. And there's a lot of other benefits as well. And so when you see this situation pushing on a federal level, what I believe is going to happen next is these companies are going to say, you know what? We're outsourcing a lot of this talent nowadays anyway. And, with the advances of AI and tech, we can, relocate our headquarters and we'd be able to do so. And it would make a lot more sense for us to do this than to, live inside of this, new America. In this video, I'm going to break it down. I'm going to show you exactly what's going on and why I think America is going to go through a really, really big change coming now. Please hit the like button. Hit the like button. YouTube will share this content to educate other people about what's going on in America's economy. If you'd like to fix your credit, we would love to help you at my company, GreatCreditFast.com. That's GreatCreditFast.com. If you have late payments, medical bills, charge-offs, foreclosures, bankruptcies, repossessions, or any negative item on your credit report, go to GreatCreditFast.com. Click the link in the description just below this video. Schedule a free study session for tomorrow. Now, most of these states have just introduced a wealth tax on properties to redistribute the wealth of these property owners back to the state so that they can spread that wealth out to the people. At least that's what we're told. Connecticut, 2.25% on properties exceeding $2.5 million in value. District of Columbia, 1.45% on properties sold for $400,000 or more, which to me, that doesn't sound like a mansion. $400,000 is less than the median home price in America. Then you have Hawaii, marginal rates between 10 and 20% for values at $5.49 million. So you think about how crazy that, you sell a $10 million home, you have to give the state $1 million, $2 million. That is absolutely crazy. New Jersey, 1% on purchases over $1 million. New York, 1 to 3.9% on residential purchases, $1 million or more. Now, many of these people do not own properties outright. So if they buy a property for $5 million, they sell it for $6 million, and they're paying 10% on that, you have to realize after agent fees, they basically gave up the entire profit back to the state. Vermont, 16% on properties over $5 million. Washington, graduated rates at 1.28% on properties sold at $500,000. And California also brought forward a tax, which they say it's not a wealth tax, but it basically is a wealth tax. It's 5.5% on properties of $5 million or more, and then or 5.5% over $10 million, and 4% for $5 million or more. So you see that, and you're like, okay, well, you look at Chicago. This just came out 4 hours ago. Did the real estate transfer tax referendum bring Chicago home pass? The Bring Chicago Home, and they have such a great way with these names, because who wouldn't want to bring Chicago home, right? The Bring Chicago Home real estate transfer tax has been one of the most talked about questions on voter ballots in the city. But with the election day over and results largely in, did voters approve it or reject it? The referendum was designed to give city voters an opportunity to determine how real estate transfer taxes are assessed. Now, this is theft. When someone buys a property and they buy it based on the location, the crime, the schools, they have a certain type of parameter that they want to hit, and they decide, I'm going to go ahead and make this purchase. And then after the purchase is made, then the new terms and conditions are made. So, okay, that's great. But when you sell the property, you got to pay us 5% or 10% or whatever the number may be. How is that fair? The property owner never agreed to it. Now it's just legal extortion. As of Wednesday morning, results still had not been called despite 98% of precincts reporting. As of 9 a.m., results showed 54% of voters were 166,000 voting no on the referendum, while 143,000 voted yes, which is 46%. According to the Chicago Board of Elections, there are nearly 110,000 ballots that had not been received as of Tuesday, which could play a role in the results. Now, my bet is we see this thing swing and it comes back as yes. And so this is where we're headed, unfortunately. Like, the world is no longer being operated on traditional capitalism, at least here in America. For example, in this article that just came out early this morning, 9:25 a.m., Yahoo Finance, they go on to say that Jeff Bezos has an estimated net worth of $194 billion at the median U.S. income of $59,540 a year. According to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, it would take you 3.3 million years to earn that much. Well, I would also argue that the level of economic output by Jeff Bezos, impacting billions of lives, supplying over 1.5 million jobs, the amount of contribution that business has given to America is far greater than the average person that they're comparing to in the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. So what they're really trying to do here is they're really trying to position themselves as, here are the have-nots, right? And then here are the have-yachts. And they're saying, you know what? Us here, we're here to take money from them because they're stealing it. They're really bad people. And we need to give it here. But the reality is that never happens that way. And the reason for this is, you think the owners of Yahoo and these major outlets, do you think that the real plan and the real goal is to combat inequality and inequity? They're billionaires that own these platforms, like absolute billionaires. The real plan is the complete opposite, the divide and conquer. You have one side here, and then you have another side here that's been taken advantage of over the last couple of years that are looking for a solution, saying, you know what, us billionaires that own media, we're here. We're going to help you. We're going to help you. Just trust us. We got this all under control. Don't worry about this. And then everyone's like, yeah, you know what? Eat the rich. We got to eat the rich. We have to combat all of this. And then what's ultimately going to happen? The reality. What's really going to happen? Nothing. Rich are going to get richer. That's how it happens every time, right? That's what happens every single time. And so to help narrow the gap, President Joe Biden outlined plans last week in 2025 budget proposal to impose a 25% tax on so-called billionaire tax on Americans hit with wealth that exceeds $100 billion. Now, is that actually going to happen? No. More layoffs are going to unfold. These massive corporations, the billionaires, they have tax and legal teams that most people couldn't even imagine. There's no way that they're going to start striking checks for hundreds of millions or billions of dollars. They're going to position themselves and their companies to benefit from this. As a lot of the jobs get taken from Americans, what's going to happen? Americans are going to be forced to sell off assets, and the rich are just going to step in and acquire them. Like it's obvious. You look at, for example, this situation here in Vermont. Some affluent Vermonters urge legislators again to tax the rich, right? March 19th, it came out yesterday. And who's behind this? They're looking at a 3% tax surcharge on earnings over $500,000, including 23 signers. Who is it? Ben & Jerry's, which that shouldn't surprise anybody because they're behind every movement of the day, right? Then you have someone who started this solar company, this renewable energy company, right? Which, of course, that they're definitely going to be benefiting with the direction of the world and how we're moving into clean energy. And then you have the founder or co-founder of SunCommon, which is a solar company. So you think these companies are just going to get richer and more powerful. That's what's going to happen. The people selling, earning $500,000 a year, after they pay state and federal taxes, after they pay their mortgage with their increased insurance and taxes, and they pay for basic necessities, they probably don't have $500,000 left. They might have $100,000. They might have $150,000 maximum. Like that's on the high end. Over 50% of people making $250,000 a year, paycheck to paycheck here in America nowadays. So you see the scenario, you see what's unfolding, and then you look at where this is all going. So wealth tax in California to get its first hearing amid big state budget problem, right? It came out about 2 months ago, January 9th, and this is coming from Alex Lee. This is Assembly Bill 259. Now, this Assembly Bill 259, Alex Lee, that name might sound familiar. It's because he's on this and he's voting, his vote's behind this movement to give approximately 15,000 high school seniors experiencing homelessness would receive direct cash assistance to help them advance to higher education or employment. Now, 15,000 seniors experiencing homelessness, I couldn't imagine there's 15,000 seniors in California that are experiencing homelessness. I could imagine there's 15,000 seniors that would love free money. I could imagine that there's people in California that need money, that need cash to survive. Their families need it due to a lot of horrible policies that have been enacted in the state of California in the last couple of years. That I could believe. But when you see all these changes unfolding, you realize where this is all going. You have 200 cities all throughout America right now working on a universal basic income pilot program. The conversations being had are that the playing field needs to be leveled. It needs to be fixed. But is it actually going to get fixed? I'll leave that to you to decide. I personally believe that what's going to happen is this. We're going to see many companies relocating outside of America and hiring for 60% less, leaning into AI and technology, finding ways in which they can save themselves from taxes, save themselves from expenses and liabilities. And all these companies, for example, look at this. Fund Night. You have FundKite. You have Twitter. You have Tesla, Amazon, Uber, NVIDIA. You have Citadel. All these big companies relocated to Miami, right? They all relocated to Miami. If there was this wealth tax of 20% wealth tax, and they were moving in this aggressive fashion, do you think NVIDIA and Citadel and all of these companies would stay there? At the very, very, very least, they'd go to Puerto Rico for 3% tax. They would go to a different country. They're not going to pay. That's my bet. But I think that the average person is going to get hit very, very, very hard on this. So when you hear the things that, we're only going to tax people $400,000 or more, we're only going to do this, we're only going to do that. The person making $300,000 or $400,000 or $450,000, do you think that the average person making that type of money is, some massive CEO? They're probably a small business owner, right? And those small business owners are going to have to probably lay people off, right? It's going to all trickle down. At the end of the day, it's going to hit Main Street. It's not going to hit Wall Street. Drop below. Let's have a conversation about this. I'm really curious as to your take. Where do you think all this is going? And, if you learned anything from this video, you found it valuable, consider subscribing. And if you have any credit issues at all, late payments, medical bills, charge-offs, foreclosures, bankruptcies, repossessions, any issue at all on your credit report, book a free strategy session by clicking the link in the description just below this video. And I'll catch you next video.